Welcome to the SoCal Car Scene Podcast, the exclusive place for coverage of car culture in Southern California and the personalities that drive it. I'm your co-host, Jay Marash. This show is associated with SoCal Classic Car Storage, which provides South OC car lovers the opportunity to secure their vehicles in an environment made just for them. Our two facilities feature advanced security systems, 24-hour video surveillance, and a dedicated members lounge. In addition to storage, our expert sales staff offers consignment services for those looking to sell their cars. For more information, visit us at Laguna Hills or at SoCalCarStorage.com or on Facebook at Facebook.com/SoCalCarStorage. Take it away, Dean.
Thanks, Jay, and welcome everyone to the SoCal Car Scene Podcast. I'm your host, Dean Marash, and we're super excited to have in our studio one of the true OGs in hot rodding, Vaughn Hot Rod.
OG, wow.
Right?
Vaughn was, you know that, Dad.
I know. I'm cutting edge, right? Vaughn was born into the motorsports industry in Southern California. His dad, Ben, also known as the Rod Father, was a sprint car driver and a drag racer from the 50s and the early 60s. Shortly after Vaughn was born, his father stopped racing and started building custom cars and hot rods. That's where Vaughn caught the hot rod bug. By his 21st birthday, he broke ground in his dream shop in Fontana, California. While setting trends in the hot rodding industry for decades, he also saw many other opportunities to grow his amazing brand and launch companies such as a hot rod record label, a dance club, men and women's clothing line, and event planning. After nearly 20 years of building his dream, Vaughn decided to sell his shop and focus on a new passion of pinstriping art. Vaughn Hot Rod is now considered to be one of the top international professionals of pinstriping and has been named the Master of the Fine Line. He has appeared on national television shows and has also been the honored guest at many international car shows with celebrities such as Dennis Gage and Barry Maguire. Today, you will find Vaughn Hot Rod at car shows throughout the country, sharing his story and his passion for the motorsports industry. Thanks for joining us today on our podcast, Vaughn.
Hey, I'm here. I just woke up. I was asleep in that Shelby you guys got stored right over there. Yeah. Just to let you know that seat's nice and comfortable.
You can fall asleep in a Shelby until we light the 427 and shake the joint.
You said storage, and I was like in there taking a nice little nap. And I just realized it's time to do this interview.
Well, you wouldn't be the first person to sleep here, so.
There you go.
Wow.
There you go.
I don't even know these stories, but, I'm sure somebody will tell me the truth one of these days, right?
Yeah, there you
Where
go.
people are sleeping in which car.
Exactly.
You saw that 63 Cadillac. There's a lot of room for sleeping in there.
I did. That's a nice caddy, though. There's some nice stuff here. You guys, you got a nice little thing going on here. I really like it.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, we really are blessed here, for sure.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming and making the trip from the Riverside County, right? What city do you live in?
Yeah, let's go with that. That's
the county.
California.
SoCal. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. So, Vaughn, tell us what it's like to grow up around hot rods and race cars with your dad. Your dad raced sprint cars and dragsters in the 50s and 60s. Did you used to hang out with him at all these tracks like Lions and Riverside and stuff?
The crazy thing is that I grew up on all these tracks. I grew up on Riverside, on Thompson's Ridge. I grew up at, Corona, little sprint car track out there, little roundy round track, Orange Show Speedway, San Bernardino. Colton used to have an airstrip, and they would do a drag race there. So I grew up, and it was this was the norm for me. On a Saturday, there would be a 55 Chevy Gasser, and Dad would pull the motor out of it. So I was the guy that would climb through the firewall, up on the window, across the roof, slide down the back window, down the trunk. That just was my slide. That's just how it was. I remember on another Gasser, they used to pull the front bumpers off and put that piece of pipe between the frame rails. And I'm hanging on that thing like it's a monkey bar, because a Gasser, the front end's raised up, and I'm just a little kid. And that's how it was. All the bikes and the Harleys around the shop, all the race cars, it just was the normal thing because Dad was always wrenching on them with his buddies. And as I grew up, Dad's always handing me wrenches, and I was the clean freak. I would clean the wrenches and hand it to him, and it would drive him nuts. We'll clean up after we're done. And I was like, no, but I don't like the grease on my hands, and, back and forth. And as I grew up, we made a good team. He was the wrench guy, the performance guy, and I was the more detail guy. So as we built cars and...
You were the finisher?
Yeah, I was more cleaning things up. He'd go in and make a mess, and I'd follow him up and, polish the aluminum and so on and so forth. And that's just... It was the normal thing I didn't know anything else. I was building my first small block Chevy at the age of under 10.
Amazing.
And, he would always tease me to kickstart his Harley. He had an old shovel head. And, of course, I was too small. I could never kickstart the bike. And growing up, it was like, one of these days I'm going to be able to kickstart that bike. As I realize when you kickstart an old Harley, it wants to kick you back. So I kind of learned my lesson the hard way. Not to kickstart a Harley.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of my growing up. People ask me, why I started this business, and I reflect back. Cars have been my passion since I was a little boy. But why is that? Because my dad always had 7 or 8 cars in the driveway, and most of them were broken or half. There was a project every weekend. There were cars to work on. So not just me and my 2 brothers worked on cars with my dad, but so did my 2 sisters. And that was our normal. But cars everywhere, and but you wrenched every weekend, and the other days you went to the junkyard.
Yeah, it just guys would be wrenching on Friday and then racing on Saturday night, and then bring everything back Sunday morning to fix it so they can drive it to work on Monday. That was the norm. Nobody really had 2 or 3, 4 cars back then. It was whatever you drove, that's what you raced in. And a lot of times, Dad was changing rear ends because they wanted a short gear ratio for the weekend, and then he had to change it back.
No kidding.
They can drive to work. And it was that's just how it was. There's no other way to get around it. And I remember Dad taught me how to drive at the age of 8. We were driving into the dirt. He taught me how to drift, which was sliding around the corner back then. Yeah, all this stuff, And as a kid, you really didn't know any better. I thought this is how it was. Everybody that's a guy, they were into cars, and it's kind of fascinating to me that with the millennial and the Uber stuff, that most of these kids don't understand that. They use cars as transportation. And I find out as I travel around that I'm trying to change their minds. Cars are still for collecting. They're not just for transportation. There's nothing like taking a young kid in a car and giving him that thrill of a second wheel chirp, or
right.
Putting the $50 bill on the dash and said, if you can grab that bill, you can have it. And you just launching the car, stuff like that. They need to experience. I always encourage the older generation to take a kid to a car show, take a kid for a ride in your car, because somebody did it to me, which was my dad. Somebody needed to do it to somebody else, and teach them the passion of this industry. There's more to it than just transportation. It's collectible. We're not hoarders, we're collectors. Remember that.
I'm going to use that term. I call it an addiction. People ask, so are you guys just here to enable your customers? And at first I denied that. I just said, customers have a problem, we've got a solution.
That's right.
But I think enablement is correct. We enable our customers to continue the collection.
Yeah, exactly.
To your point. But, Jason and I have had this conversation a lot, and we argue at length about the next generation. How do we keep them engaged, whether it's pinstriping or building cars or getting interested in cars? And what's worked for you? I mean, you personally, you've obviously been around a lot of kids.
For me, it's just talking to them, finding out their passion and using that passion and twist it into the car industry. Because a lot of them, it's a computer generation. They like to do the graphics. And I always say, if you're going to get into cars, there's not an app for what we do. It's not a click and go. You have to use your hands. You've got to use your technology. Start to think, start to experience it. And it doesn't matter what part you go into, as in, hot rodding, street rodding, the drift scene, tuners, four-wheel drives. Okay. The idea is just get in. And everybody asks me that same thing. Well, how do I get that break? And I go, well, you're really going to hate my answer, but it's the only answer I have. Find your local shop or local industry that you like and go volunteer for them. And they're going to make you sweep the floor, pull weeds, clean the bathroom. But they've got to get that personality out of you. Who are you? A resume or a piece of paper isn't going to give them an answer of who you are. I can teach you all the secrets, but I cannot teach you the passion. You've got to have that in you. And if you're willing to go work 15 hours a day for free and volunteer, you definitely will get hired by these people. You definitely have a passion for it. But again, you've got to volunteer, show them who you are, tell them that, yeah, someday I want to work here. Someday I want to be, whether it be the head of marketing or the head wrench guy or the head transmission guy, you've got to show them personality. Volunteer. Step one head against the next guy that hands them a resume. Show them who you are.
I think we have our fathers to thank for our generation where we were doing this kind of stuff every day, and it was just life.
Yeah.
Whereas now kids have grown up with nobody lifts the hood anymore.
Yeah.
The car goes to the dealer every 10,000 miles. So now we have to find another solution. I love your idea. Go volunteer. Go get involved.
Yeah.
And just make yourself available.
My best employees, believe it or not, were the kids that used to skateboard around my shop, because I used to skate. I put a half pipe inside my shop. So after I was done, I would skate the ramp. Well, kids had found out in the neighborhood that I had a skateboard ramp in my shop, so they would skate around and want to skate the ramp. And I'd always chase them off, and then I start saying, "You guys want to skate the ramp? Here's a broom. Here, pick some weeds. Do whatever." So 8 kids would show up, and as I'd put them to work, when I'd go check on them, there usually is about 2 left. So those were the guys that would skate the ramp, and the next day, same thing. Next day, it's always the same 2 guys. So from there, I started going, come into the shop. Let's do this. So I started them very basically, helping me put a set of headers on, helping me change a wheel. And you could see the desire in them that they would just wanted to work with their hands. And these guys became my best employees.
No kidding.
Yeah. Wow. They were just passionate about it. They loved cars. 2 of the guys that I know of, one works for SEMA now. Another one is still in the auto parts industry. He has a hot rod shop that he builds hot rods. He builds more traditional rods. But they're still in this industry, and it is finding that kid and finding the passion. And I always say that. Take a kid for a ride. Let him experience what that header sound is like, what it's like to get a second gear chirp. There's nothing like that. You can't explain that to somebody, what it feels like to be, pushed back in the seat and to get that second wheel chirp. It's an experience that you have to experience it for yourself.
One of the things that we really like, to your point, in a car show is the Cruising for a Cure show at the fairgrounds in Orange County. Because it's a drive as well as a car show.
Right.
And the thing that I noticed down there, we've had a booth there for about 4 years now, and we're big supporters of prostate cancer and the cause down there. Yeah. But the fact that you get to drive your car around the whole show, and that everybody jumps in the car, and people actually trade cars.
Yes.
Hey, do you want to drive my car? Here's the keys. People are flipping you keys. Kids are in the cars. And so I think that right there is an indication of we need to make them accessible and enjoyable, because you go to a lot of these car shows, hey, you get a sign there, don't touch. I think there's a lot of this, my car is too perfect, I'm afraid, going on in the industry. So,
and it's one of those things. It's my dad, he's driving a few of the cars, and the other day he kind of dove into a driveway a little too hard, and he rolled the front because there's no front bumper on this 42 Merc. So he rolled the front. He's all very apologetic, and I go, Dad, that can be fixed. I go, the point is you're enjoying yourself, you're having fun with it. Anything can be pounded out. No, I don't want my car scratched. No, I'm sure the guy next to me doesn't want his car scratched. But again, if we change a kid's mind, to me, the scratch is worth it. That's how I see it. Is the car can be repaired, replaced, or repainted. It just gives you an excuse to redo it again. Right. But the idea is change these kids' minds. Let them know that cars are not just for transportation. They're for collecting. They're for getting the second wheel chirp. I always go back to that because that's an experience that I had. I remember when Dad used to street race, not legally, we'd race traffic light to traffic light when we'd cruise down the local boulevard. He was always making bets, traffic light to traffic light. And my biggest thrill was standing on, he had a 55 Pontiac fuel injected. I would stand on the bench seat, and when he would launch, I would end up in the back seat. And I thought that was such a big thrill. I still remember that.
Can you imagine our mothers today? Oh, my gosh.
Oh, yeah, that would never happen.
So one of the other car shows that probably bears mentioning, Jason and I went to the Grand National Roadster Show in 2019 in Pomona. We were super impressed with the current builds and the builders.
Right.
Many of them, obviously pretty notable. Chip Foose was there, and Hollywood Hot Rods, and you were probably there. I mean,
absolutely,
just a number of them. And matter of fact, I used to go to that show with my dad in Oakland.
Oh, funny.
And
wow.
Back in the late 60s, early 70s. So that show's been around for a long time. What's this show mean to you and the industry, and how connected are you to that whole vibe that's going on there?
To the Grand National, gosh, it's a piece of history. Like you said, it started in Oakland, and that's where you debuted the latest trends of what you were doing, or you had a different idea, and you'd set that trend. And nowadays, it's so easy to do stuff, as in we have our CNC machines, we've got our laser-guided cuts. I remember building hot rods, even just back up, 10 years ago. Everything was still very, very primitive. You'd cut a bracket out and you'd be grinding for 5 hours trying to get it straight. Now it's a program. You punch your keys and out comes your bracket with either spider webs or a logo in it and stuff like that. That's what I like, is everything. It's not so much the greasy guy. It's the kid that has the computer skills that can help out these local shops. And I just like where the trend is going. Last year, I believe at SEMA, they were saying it was an $8.6 billion industry, the motorsports industry. Now it's everything combined. But the idea is there's no end in sight. What we do is a luxury. You don't need hot rodding, street rodding, four-wheel drives to survive in this world. We picked a career or a job that you don't really need us. But that just goes to tell me that, people are still into cars, they're still collecting, and there's really no end in sight. Every show that I go to, I was just at Detroit, the Autorama, and what the guys are doing, they step up one more level compared to what they did for last year, and I'm like, gosh, how are they going to top it? And I see the builds of what they did, and I'm like, okay, they did top it. That's amazing what these guys are doing. And I see no end in sight. I think it's going to be, SoCal Speed Shop did their electric 32 Roadster. I think, that's where the technology is going to go. It's going to go to the electric hot rod, the electric chop Merc. A lot of guys are frowning on that. And, they frowned on me for driving muscle cars to high school. They frowned on my dad for driving, his 44 to school in those days. And we frowned on the kids when they were building mini trucks. But the mini truck craze is back, and it's strong as ever. And again, it's that age bracket of the kids when they were building their mini trucks back in the the 80s. Now they're grown adults and they want to have that Nissan hardbody or that Toyota truck back again, and they're building now with technology and money. They're able to build it exactly the way they wanted to.
You saw that Mustang, that 1970 Mustang, the green one. Our customer did a lot of that work with CNC, and I think he was using all the latest technology. Did it in his own garage, and he was using 3D.
And that's what's
printing.
nice.
He was using a 3D printer, fabbing his own fenders. He doesn't have an English wheel and all the stuff that made the craftsman of the day. Right. But what's nice is you take a guy like that with the resources, and now he can. He said, I rendered in 3D as well. Yeah. And so then I could turn the whole model 360 degrees and see my design, and then decide to make changes via the computer. And then he would generate the parts via 3D. So it's pretty powerful stuff. But you're right. You gotta embrace technology.
Oh, absolutely.
Just to continue to stay on this curve. Otherwise, you're going to spend a lot of labor, right? Trying to catch up.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, take advantage of what is out there nowadays. We always say the garage mechanic is a thing of the past, and I don't think so. I think the idea is it's taking that garage guy and taking the young kid that knows the technology and putting those two together to make, as I say, one good person. It's endless what these guys can do with the imagination of the fabricator that does it by hand, with the imagination of what the kid can do with the computer is just unreal. And that's where, like the Foos or the Hollywood hot rod guys, that's what they're doing. They're using modern technology, 3D printing, like you said, 3D modeling, to take it to the next level. Because now you don't have to fabricate the thing and scratch and then scrap it because it didn't come out right. Now you can actually do your prototype, look at it, whether on screen or actually 3D print it, and say, okay, this is going to work. It's not going to work, and I'm all for it. I think it's awesome what these guys are.
Is there an implication that the money will push out the guy that does things the hard way? When I go to SEMA, for example, or any of these notable car shows, even the Grand National Roadster Show, I just look at the dollars spent on some of these cars, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. How does the really skilled fabricator keep up with the guy that's dropping $500,000 or more into these cars? Is there a way for them to still have a presence, or are they disadvantaged?
No, I don't think they're disadvantaged. It's just, again, you got to go with the times. A good example, Gene Winfield. Gene Winfield, he's 94. He's keeping up. He's as busy as ever, still fabricating cars, combination of old school with modern technology because Gene has stepped it up. And he's still doing it the way he used to, but with modern technology and modern tools. He's still hammering metal by hand, and yet he's throwing it in an English wheel, and yet he's 3D printing some stuff. So there's a good example of somebody that's done it from the very start, lead filled, body filler is lead, and has moved up to technology where he's pounding out the stuff in aluminum, which is hardly any body filler now. And that's somebody that adapted to old school, new school stuff, and grabbed on the new things. And that's what's super cool is, again, can't be scared of technology. You can't be scared of your Twitter account or however you look at it. You just got to embrace it and learn. It's just like anything. Somebody had to learn it. I always say when I was growing up, if somebody put it together, I can take it apart and make it better. And if you have that kind of attitude, it's endless of what you could do.
Well, I think it's a great conversation, and I think you mentioned social media, and that's such an integral part of our business. And an integral part of your success lately is getting the word out there, right? Whether it's selling your incredible merchandise with all your amazing designs, or whether it's just getting your story out there in front of new people and young people. I mean, without it, like Jay is the one that enables me to do that. He's enabling us to do this podcast.
Right.
And so again, if you can't embrace the new stuff, it's hard to move forward into the future.
Absolutely.
Fair to say, even if you're old like me.
Because you look at it this way. When I had my hot rod shop before social media existed, you're king in your neighborhood. All the hot rod guys, local guys are hanging out there. Once in a while, you get somebody from 100 miles away. Everybody's hanging out at the shop. Well, like I said, you're king in your neighborhood. Social media comes along. Now it's put this little hot rod shop that's king in one town, has made it, socially acceptable all over the world. So now somebody that's traveling to Southern California, they want to go check out this hot rod shop over here, or they want to go check out this museum, or they want to go drop by Gene Winfield's, or whatever the case may be. And that's what's made it nice, because now it's taken a small industry and just made it worldwide.
And it's accessible, right? People can gain access to you.
Very simple.
Via your Instagram, your Facebook, or come see you at a show and know where you're going to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Or if you got an event.
Right. They follow me, and they already know all about me. They come up and, hey, I saw this, or I read this. And so they feel like there's a common bond there, or they share a story that's common like yours, and you just automatically know the person. You feel very comfortable when they're coming up.
Awesome.
And I always say, take advantage of it. Use it, the best of your abilities.
So let's talk a little bit about the transition. You've been through a big transition. You spent a lot of your early days fabricating and building and taking apart and fixing your dad's screw-ups. Don't tell him I said that. It's probably too late. But you did all that for many years, and then all of a sudden, at some point, right after 20-plus years of doing that, you said, hey, I'm going to make a change. I want to try this pinstriping. How does that come about?
Well, it's all, believe it or not, it's a weird story, because I built this hot rod shop. We became one of the largest in the industry. I sold the shop a few years ago, and what happened is we were always buying and selling cars, always flipping cars. We were doing an average of probably 4 to 6 cars a month. Okay, wow. We were doing a lot of cars, and we messed from 1963 on down. Nothing newer than 63. We stayed with mostly 40s, 50s, and early 60s. And we would get the cars to a point to sell, and I'd have a striper come in and stripe the cars, and just add a little bit more on Saturday. And just difference of opinions, and times have changed. And I said, well, I'm just going to learn how to do it myself. I'm going to do it all in-house. And so I actually was striping our own cars, not signing it, and selling cars with my striping on it, and not telling anybody that I was striping the cars. One day a customer walked in, and I was striping on my glass table because I wanted to do a car that weekend. And I was playing with some ideas. And he walks in and says, I didn't know you pinstriped. And I go, yeah, I've always striped. That's me. Whenever something comes on, nobody ever told me no. So I just kept adventuring and adding to whatever, opening up a business like the record label and stuff like that. So I said, yeah, absolutely I do. He goes, would you stripe my Merc? So we looked at it outside. I gave him a price. He says, yes. So that was on a Wednesday. I said, the only catch is you got to drop it off on Saturday and leave it all day, because I'm very busy. Come in at 8 o'clock in the morning, pick it up at 5. Don't come any earlier than that. Just leave it at that. He's all sure. So he dropped it off. It literally took me all day to do, because he wanted a 3-color design. I laid the first color, forced it dry, because striping takes hours to dry. Forced it dry, liked it, added the second color, so on and so forth. That was the first paid gig I ever did. It was a 50 Merc. I never told the guy. To this day, I ran into him actually at the Grand National Roadster Show, and I ran into him at SEMA. And I still, to this day, he doesn't know that his car was the very first car.
Well, he may know. He may now know.
I don't know, because I've done a lot of 50 Mercs, so you'd have to gamble which one it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were afraid to share with him that it was your first.
And then, making a long story short, I sell my shop. I take a year off. I travel with the kids. It's doing, I'm kind of out of the industry. A promoter finds me, right? Says, hey, where you been? I want you to come to my show. I said, no, I'm out of the industry. He goes, I'll pay you a salary to come. And I really didn't want to go, because I want to feel like one of those has-beens. I don't want to sit there with my picture autographing and there's nobody in line. I'm like, so we agreed to terms. I said, all right, I'll come. I printed a couple shirts really quick with a car on them. I said, I'll just bring my paints and I'll splash around on some metal when nobody's there. Well, I had come and started doing that, and people were handing me stuff. Oh my gosh, where you been? How you been doing this? Here, stripe my phone, stripe my, whatever, air cleaner. And so people were taking pictures of me and posting them on MySpace and saying, Von Hot Rod, the pinstriper. Was
Did you know
here.
what MySpace was?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Everybody
okay.
had a MySpace.
Oh, okay.
So
I never had one.
It was early on, and they're posting it. So social media tagged me as Von Hot Rod, the pinstriper.
That's where you got.
Yeah,
the
that's where That's where the pinstriping come from. And you know me, as for marketing stuff, I kind of just ran with it. So the one gig got me 2 gigs, got me 3 gigs, and so on and forth. You know, as they say, the rest is history.
So it's
I'm not trained to be a striper. I love doing it. I like what I do. The industry's been very good to me. I'm very blessed. But in reality, I'm a car builder, designer, fabricator.
So where does the artistry come from? I mean, when you look back, do you see artistic talents in your mother, your father, your family? Or is this just something that evolved?
It just evolved because I was a kid that used to draw on the desk. I would do the cartoons for our local school paper and stuff like that.
You were always a doodler.
Yeah, I was always drawing on the desk and getting in trouble. You'd draw on the desk and you'd see if it lasts till the next day. And of course it never would. I'd draw on the chalkboard and, get in trouble for that. And so, it's just one of those things. And I think a lot has to do with I don't know how it works. I can't explain. When a brush is in my hand, things change. My heart rate slows down. I see things differently. It's sound for me. I know it sounds weird, but I hear the lines. I can hear them.
Wow.
And it's really super strange on how it works. Sometimes I will be striping the hood of a car and I'm thinking, wow, this is pretty cool. I don't know how this is working, but this looks really good.
So it does beg one question. What happens if and when you make a mistake, and does that ever happen?
Well, I always say your customer will never know. Just draw another line.
Is that true?
You can balance it out if you're crooked. You can make another line to balance it out if they're left and right. We try to. When I got serious about striping, I said, okay, a customer is going to pay me to do work. It's got to be, to me, in my head now. Not everybody thinks this. It's got to be perfect. It's got to be flawless. It's got to be to the point where it's like, wow, there's no way that's hand done. And that's how I trained myself, was to do it where somebody comes up with a $100,000 car. Now you're going to put enamel paint on it on top of what he's got. And usually when I start striping a car, the customer is behind me. He's pacing back and forth.
You let him watch?
Yeah.
I was going to ask you that question.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're pacing back and forth. And as the design comes by, you can see the pacing slowing down and they start understanding it. Because they always ask me, okay, how are you going to do it? And I say, I don't know. I'll get in the zone and I'll figure it out as I go. So I create as I go. I don't come and show up with a book and say, okay, this is what I did on this car. This is what I did. I don't. I just look at the car, kind of feel what the car is telling me, and then I stripe it, and I usually match.
So this is like going... Sandy is here, by the way.
Yes, Sandy's my wife.
Your beautiful wife.
Thank you.
She's wonderful.
Thank you.
And it makes me think it'd be like going to a hairdresser and saying, hey, what do you think I need? Just give me, the right do, whatever you think. That's what he's saying, because if I get this right, they're not laying out a design in front of you, and you're not giving them a design back, and you're not going back and forth. You're just saying, hey, here's what I feel. This is what I'm going to go do.
And a lot of times, and plus it matters the states. Every state's a little bit different. And I'll be in a different state, and they'll say, I want my car done by you. I said, no problem. And they'll come up, and let's just make it easy. Let's say it's a white car, okay? It's got a basic gray interior. Basic car, chrome and white. There's no other colors on it. They'll walk up and say, I'll want magenta with peach and yellow. And I say, I talk to them a little bit more, and I'll say, well, I think your best bet is to find another striper. And they're shocked. And I go, my name is on it, and the colors won't look good. You're not going to be happy. It's not period correct of what you have here. You've got a resto rod, and it's just not going to look right. And so they kind of ask, well, what would you do? And I kind of explain it to them. And they make the decision, either I trust you, go ahead and do it. And, thank the Lord that they've been happy every time I've ended the result. But a lot of times I'll turn down a job because it's not something that I would want to represent my name. It's just not the right look for
Now,
me.
it's your brand every time you do this.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, I like what I do, and I want to be proud when a car drives off that, hey, that's got my name on it. And I want the customer to really like it. And most of the time they'll come back saying, yeah, I'm so glad I didn't do, or I'm so glad you talked me out of. And I really don't talk them out of it. I just give them a different perspective of what they're looking for. A lot of times they'll read in magazines or see on social media, and they'll take pictures and say, that's exactly what I want. Well, that doesn't really fit your car because that's on a 40 Ford and you're driving a 65, Chevelle. That's just not going to work.
Not going to work.
So, yeah.
So do you have any signature cars that you've done that when people, see them or you see them, that kind of is just you, that one or two cars that are really
Well, the one that stands out the most is my 41 Ford. We did a 12-inch chop on a 41 Ford with a 7-inch body channel on a full race flathead out of a 50 Merc on a 4-barrel with a Magneto LaSalle transmission. And in 1997, we did a contract with Intel to make it a Hot Wheel, and it came out as a Hot Wheel in 1998. And you know it as the tail dragger. You can buy it at Walmart or Target.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the tail dragger's my car.
That's
built
your
that.
car. Okay.
Gene Winfield did the roof on it, and there's 10% of the actual roof left on the car.
10%.
Yeah. So,
just 10%.
Yeah, it's around the back window. That's about it. Everything else is fabricated.
Awesome. One of our other customers, Jim Cooper, had a car built and then painted. It was a PPG Paint Competition. And the way that went, he competed against like 11 other cars with this Spectra Flame paint that PPG was rolling out. And his was a 55, not a Nomad, but a handyman wagon. And he won the competition. So ever since then, it's all about his Hot Wheel car. So he'll get invited to these events. And nobody's that excited about the car. But he's like, hey, man, do you got any more of those Hot Wheels? Can you sign this Hot Wheel? It's in the box. They're worth $75, $80. But being a there's a responsibility. You get invited to all these events, and all these kids and
every time I'm out,
right?
Like when I was in Detroit, people are bringing up the tail dragger for me to sign and take a picture.
I bet they do.
So it's very flattering.
Awesome.
Like I said, the industry's been really good to me. I've been very, very blessed, and I don't have a plan B, so I always say this has to
work. So, who are some of the notable builders in your past? And, maybe in the present, but, some of the guys that come to mind, and I don't know if that was your dad's era or your era, but, Ed Roth.
Ed, the crazy thing about Ed, he's a pinstriper, as you know. He's an artist.
Yeah.
Ed didn't teach me anything on pinstriping. He taught me a lot on marketing. A lot of my marketing skills are from Ed Roth. Wow. Yeah, if you ever think about it, you look at how Ed marketed his product or his merch or the Rat Fink, you kind of bend over, look at Von Hot Rod, you're like, there's a lot in common there, because I learned a lot of it from Ed Roth, a lot of marketing skills from him. But as in builders,
George
believe it or
Barris,
not,
anybody, nobody.
Dick Dean. Dick Dean, I don't know if you know, he built, like the Flintstone cars that was in the movie. He built the longest limousine. He did work on the Munster coach. He did work on the Grandpa's Dragula. He did stuff like that. He was a big influence in me. I would show up at his shop at a young age. This is over 35 years ago. I'd show up, and he just saw something in me that nobody else did, and he would guide me along. This is what you do. This is how you do this. And the crazy thing is once I started my business going, Dick Dean became one of my best customers. He was always buying stuff. I go, Dean, you have action. He goes, nope. He goes, nobody has customer service like you. You always take care of me. You always have what I need, what I'm looking for. And so we became
That's the ultimate compliment, right?
It is, because he was like
the protege and the mentor.
Exactly, my mentor.
Kind of flipped, the whole script.
Yeah, it was really an honor. It was really an honor to, do it, come about the way it did, and for it to flip like it did. And now his son, Keith Dean, they call him the Kid. We're really good friends, and we do a lot of things together. We'll do that car show that's coming up that I help out with, the Benedict Castle concourse that we're doing in April.
So Jay, we need to get there. We've never been to the Benedict.
You got to go.
We've talked about it, but Barry's daughter unfortunately passed.
Correct.
This last year, and she ran that show.
Yes.
And ran it so well. What a tremendous contributor to the car scene in SoCal. We would have definitely podcasted with her. Yeah. She was had a huge heart.
She did.
And
she did. She was It's for Teen Challenge. I'm not sure if you guys know what that is.
I am familiar with it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. They raise money for kids that are addicted to some kind of substance, and it's a free addiction center for them, so they rely on donations and stuff like that. Nicole McGuire was a graduate of Teen Challenge, and that's how it came about. And so she started doing this fundraiser for Teen Challenge, this car show, and it just grew. We have since changed the name to the Nicole McGuire Benedict Castle Concourse.
Awesome.
And we raise a lot of money for them. It's very expensive for the kids who go through the program. I'm almost mistaken. It's like $20,000 a student to run through the program for a year. It's a year program. And so they rely on donations. And if they have 200 students living on campus, that's a lot of money to house these kids. So we do this car show, and we raise money for them. We have live auctions, we have silent auctions, we have donations coming in from different car clubs. They'll give a couple $100 and stuff like that.
But Teen Challenge reaches out to adults as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, they don't just help teenagers.
No,
their reach is across this country is amazing.
I was there last year. We were working, getting the kids ready. I call them kids, they're students, getting them ready for the car show of last year. And these two students were bantering back and forth off each other. And I kept teasing them. I go, you guys are worse than girls. You keep arguing. And the kid goes, that's my dad. So the son and dad were in the program together.
Wow.
And wow, that's an impact. So I had to sit them down. I go, I got to hear your story. And of course, it wasn't a pretty story. And it was very heartwarming how they both decided to make the change in their life, that it's time to straighten up. The kid first and the dad followed because he saw what the kid was doing. And that's a pretty impact for that to happen.
Well, Jay, let's make it a point to get out to Benedict Castle. April
26th.
26th.
Riverside, California, Benedict Castle. You can go to the website or go to Facebook or find me on Facebook. I'll send you a message.
So many shows on our list.
Yeah.
It's so hard to get to them all, but we definitely want to make it a point to get there.
It definitely is hard to get to them all.
It is.
So, VonHotRod.com. In preparation for this podcast, I hung out a lot on there, and I was like, yeah, okay, some really cool this, that, and the other thing, and I was like, whoa, check out the clothes for both men and women.
That's
a lot
correct.
of cool stuff for women.
It's crazy because everything from my shop happened as an accident. I'm probably giving a lot of secrets away, but a guy would come in the shop. My showroom was about right at 3,500 square feet, so it's a pretty good size. They'd walk in with their wives or girlfriends, and they would just stand there. And I was like, well, that's a potential customer. So I'd start talking to them, asking them what they like, what they're into. And most of them said the same thing. There isn't any clothes for us. And then when my daughter was born, there wasn't any cool, clean clothes for my daughter to wear to car shows. So we started a girl clothing line called Hot Rod Girl. We're celebrating 28 years in business with
Congrats.
Hot Rod Girl.
Wow.
And we just moved into that industry, and we were making leopard skirts and tie tops and bandanas and shoes and high heels. And
so was your daughter your official model?
She was, because I started out with a 12-month T-shirt, and as she grew, the line grew, and it's growing into what it is today. We make them from 12 months all the way to extra large and women's, and everything you can go from a low end, $10 shirt all the way to a high end $50 shirt.
So necessity is truly the mother of invention.
Oh,
it wasn't like, hey man, I want to get into X, Y, Z.
No.
You're just like, people are saying, I
there's
need
a
a
need.
shirt, I need a hoodie, I need
Yeah.
I need leopard skin. What was that?
Our kids' clothes, leopard skirt, yeah.
Oh, leopard skirt. Sorry.
Yeah, and it just kind of fell into it, evolved with the record label. We had a club attached to the Hot Rod shop. And we had a stage, and a lot of these bands were playing there, and they didn't have CDs. And I said, well, how hard it is to put you guys on CDs. So I started the record label called Hot Rod Records, and that's how that grew. So everything was listening to customers. They'll tell you what your needs are, and you just follow up with it. And that's how everything evolved. Everything evolved from that. We started a line a couple of years ago, about 5 years ago, which is pinstripe high heel shoes, purses, and we call it Pinstripe Couture. So that started just recently. That's the most recent thing
I saw your high heels. Yeah. They look pretty fancy. Sandy, are these Sandy approved?
Sandy approved.
Does she get involved in the design of these?
She'll go, what about these stripes? And I'm, absolutely. So we'll do a left. She has a leopard pair of heels that we did for her that are super cool. She likes to wear them. So
yeah, that's pretty cool.
Nice.
So I'm really impressed with your merch, Jay.
Thank you.
Jay likes ballroom dancing. He's been pretty quiet about this, but he's quite the dancer. Jay, would you consider rockabilly and some of these other forms?
Well, I've only gotten into West Coast swing and some East Coast swing, so I haven't really ventured much into that Lindy Hop type of land that's super really fast dancing.
Yeah, it's a lot faster. Correct, it is faster.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun though. Looks like it.
It is. We used to do swing dance lessons at our club, and believe it or not, I never took them.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I never took them. So, yeah.
Jason's about to compete, and
Nice.
so he's got a competition coming up. So I'm going to have to get out there and be the supporter.
We're gonna have to flame you a jacket with flames up your sleeve.
Oh yeah, for sure, no doubt. That'll look good when I'm doing tango.
There you go. I like it. Sweet. We'll make it happen. There you go.
So some of the other stuff I happened to stumble onto on your BonHotRod.com is your accessories and your jewelry. I mean, that's where I really went, wow, look at this stuff.
It's crazy.
I mean, you've got a lot of the jewelry on right now,
Right.
which is awesome. Like, I see rings and
Right.
all kinds of cool
And the
stuff.
crazy
like
thing is
bracelets.
I've always done this, and they were originally made out of silver because it's easier. But then that limits your clientele because it's too expensive.
Yeah.
So we figured out we can pour stainless steel. So everything's made out of stainless now. And we make the jewelries, the V8 ring, the wrench ring, the rim ring, and like you said, the wrench bracelet. All of that's on the website, vonhotrodshop.com.
Von Hot Rod Shop.
Yeah, make sure you stop by there and check it out. And we do merchandising for other companies. If they have an idea, we can develop it for them. Just let us know. We'll make it happen.
Well, I tell you what, you've got some amazing accessories.
Thank you.
And the jewelry. Just how do you design everything yourself, or are you working with somebody, or what?
Well,
is it mostly all your design?
It's crazy because originally it started out with wax figures. You would have to carve out your design in wax and pop a mold off of that. But nowadays, if you follow technology, you can do a rough sketch on a computer. The computer figures it out for you. You can 3D print it. You have a mold. You can have product in your hand within 2 weeks.
And this is what you're doing? This is what you're doing?
Yeah. Well, I farm out the stuff because, as I say, the boss never works anymore. I don't have the time to do this anymore. It's just, my schedule is so tight.
Yeah.
In February of this year, I was home. If you add up the days I was home 1 week in February.
Sandy gave me a clue to that when she walked in today. I said, "Oh, nice to meet you. It's good to we were chatting.
Yeah.
It's so nice to have him home."
Yeah.
And it's just she's fortunate to be able to spend time. I think she's enjoying either that or she's laughing at us. I'm not sure.
No, she's a lot of fun to hang. We have so much fun together.
I can see that.
We do.
She's really loving the life. I can tell. So, how do we, moving forward, how do we continue to engage these next generations? Do we need to find things different than car shows? Is it going to be on the computer? I'm always curious about how do we keep these rich traditions alive. I think my tradition lived because my dad felt like the front yard was the repair shop.
Right. And
the court or the street was also part of our repair shop. And until somebody else parked there, that was our space. And you could, we always did a remove and replace of an engine, got the cherry picker and pulled an engine in the street in the neighborhood.
Right.
And that was, like you said, that was normal.
Right.
But today that's just not going to happen anymore.
No,
We got HOAs and people ratting you out, and next thing you know, you'll get a ticket. And so it's getting harder and harder to do stuff at home and even in your garage and in your driveway. I mean, it's tough. I've had people get tickets for working on their cars in their garage from their HOA. So how do we do this? Is there going to be more like a community place where people can, hang out and wrench on their stuff? Or
I think we should all just get together and build our own neighborhood. You can imagine what that'd be. It'd be noisy, I'll tell you that. Because everybody always comes to my neighborhood when I come home. If I'm driving something because of the bikes and the cars, they're like, "What do you got going on now?" I literally have a 50 wheelies. That's it's tubbed. It's noisy. It's got zoomies on it. I drove it home one day, and it's just the neighbors all coming out. What is
Uncorked.
that thing? Oh, it doesn't. There's no room for mufflers. Let's put it that way. But it's getting back to your question about how we do that, my biggest thing is when I see a group of kids, whether on skateboards or bikes or just hanging out, I'll go up and talk to them. And I'm not scared. However you want to say it, the piercings, the tattoos, however you want to look at it, punk rock, it doesn't matter to me. Just walk up and talk to them. They're just like anybody else. They love to talk about what they have. And that's the easiest way. What kind of skateboard do you have? Hey, where'd you get that piercing? Or let me see your tattoo. All they want to know is they just want your time. Don't be scared them by intimidating them. Yeah. And then you can adjust the conversation. You could turn that conversation over and lead that and find out what they're into. Ask them what kind of car they like and start with that. And it doesn't matter if you're into muscle cars or you're into four-wheel drives. If they're into tuners, well, find out what they know about tuners, because even though if you're into four-wheel drives, you're going to know a little bit about cars. They still have an engine and four wheels, so there's a little bit of common ground. What I like about when I travel out of the country, okay, I'm out of the country and I travel, I feel more American than I do when I'm home. Because out of the country, they drive American cars, they wear American clothes, as in they love their Levi jeans and their Dickies shirts, they listen to American music, and they fly American flags. And this is the hot rod car culture. Okay? Whenever I go, because usually when I leave the country, I'm going to an event. I'm going to some type of car event. Right. So when I'm there, they're all this, and I am just amazed. They're always asking me, well, what kind of shoes are those? Or what do you wear? Where's that ring? And, what's it like? What kind of music? Is there any new music out in your area that we can start listening to or download? And they are just so proud of what we've accomplished in this free state that they want to be just like us. And it's amazing.
To your point, we've sold a number of cars to Australia
right.
and to New Zealand.
Yes.
And it's hard as hell to import those cars over there.
Right. It's
And a lot of the guys that are buying the cars, that's their business.
Yeah.
So they know how to get around the requirements and get those cars permitted or certified or whatever and resell them. But they said, hey, man, there's these clubs. These people love these cars. 40 Fords, 32 Fords. They're buying up all the old stuff.
I was in Sweden, and they love big American Cadillac Chrysler 4-doors because they can put all their buddies in it. And if you have a wagon, oh my gosh, you're king. You are king if you have a big Chrysler 4-door wagon. They love that stuff. But what I was getting at, the age bracket in other countries, it is usually about from 14 to 70 years old. And they're all hanging together. And I've noticed the common bond is the cars and the music. If you come up and start talking to them about cars and music, there's a common bond. It doesn't matter what the younger generation, the middle generation, or the older generation look like. They all have that common bond of music and cars, and that's what I like. And I've kind of taken that and brought it back this way and saying, well, let's see if that's a common bond. And sure enough, you talk to some kids and you could find out, lo and behold, they like the Stones, they like the Beatles, they like Elvis Presley. And that's a common bond because the older generation, they love Elvis Presley. So if you can get a young guy and an older guy talking at least about Elvis Presley, about the music and how the hair was or whatever the case may be, and then you can adjust the conversation to cars and take them for a ride. I can't stress on how much important it is for that kid to experience. Because if he's used to just Ubering back and forth and Ubering his food in and out, and you take him for a ride and whatever you got, your 55 Chevy or your Lamborghini or your four-wheel drive that's overlifted, he's going to give it a different perspective of an automobile.
Well, I think that's true with you, Jay, right? You've been with me for 2+ years at this business?
Yeah, just about. Yeah.
But think about all the cars that you've driven in and out of the warehouse or from one building to another.
Oh, yeah.
And that he didn't even know how to drive a manual transmission.
Ooh. Yeah, I wasn't really into cars before I started working here, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I always thought that, it's funny, we were talking about, cars being on the driveway. I remember your piece of crap Mercury Cougar just rusting away in the driveway made me laugh. But, I wasn't really into cars like you were. Right. I remember even I told my dad, I was like, we were wrenching on my 90 Ford Bronco there, and I'm like, Dad, I don't like cars as much as you do, so I'm sorry,
I was devastated. No,
but now I like them, Now I like them working.
Well,
here.
it's getting a different perspective of it.
Sure,
it's not cars are not for transportation, and that's the view you probably had, is just to get from point A to B.
And I think you just got to find what you like,
right?
And that's the beauty of car culture, is that there's something for everybody. You just got to find it.
Exactly.
You just got to find it.
Yeah. Again, they made fun of me. The older generation made fun of me for driving a muscle car to school. Oh, that's a death trap. You need a big 50 Merc with all that iron around it, because that was their perspective of cars. Yeah. And then, of course, as I got older, then I made fun of the younger generation. Why are you driving that Ford Escort? You know what I mean? It was that.
Probably because it'll beat your muscle car, right?
It's probably. Those little rice cookers were pretty quick. But.
Yeah, they were.
Oh yeah, I love those.
So no, that's a part of the business that I really enjoy with my son. This may not be his future.
Right.
Cars may not be in his future from a career standpoint. But what it's enabled him to get close to hundreds of different cars, whether they be exotics or tuners or muscle cars or classics. He's had a chance to sit in them and experience them. And they've got their own, I don't know, they're almost like people. When they come to life,
absolutely.
They smell different. Mm-hmm. They all feel different. They've all got their own personality.
The crazy thing is I'm sure when you get in a different car, you seem to get a different personality. Whether you're in a truck or whether you're in a little, a Porsche or something like that. Oh, yeah. You get a different attitude. Everybody tells me, what's your favorite car to drive? And it's like, well, that's a hard question to ask, because I feel cool when I drive this one, then I feel great when I drive this one, and I feel I need to dress up when I drive this one. So
sure.
Jason's got a quote from Carol Shelby about that.
Oh, that his favorite car is always his next one.
Yes. Yes.
But just they're you can definitely feel a car's personality, especially with the manual transmission.
Right. Absolutely.
You can just the way that the clutch releases and they feel the gearbox. It's amazing how different those can be on every car.
Yes.
I love it when Jay says, Dad, hey, take a picture of me in this car. We're just pulling it out of the warehouse, making it available for the customer. And that's what I love, because at first when he came down here, I was taking pictures of him. Like, I'm like, oh, this is a cool picture. He's driving this, that green truck that you saw, the heavily modified one. I'm like, you look great in this truck. But now it's gotten to a point where he understands, the importance. And, for me, I think there's a responsibility that we have to preserve the history, the rich history of automobile manufacturing, design, fabrication. These are works of art.
Oh, absolutely.
And, it's a breathing, living museum, I feel like, in the business that I'm in. And, I think we all have a responsibility, regardless of if our part's small like ours is or big like yours is. That's what we're here for, man.
We're very blessed that we have this platform that we can share with others. I always say that my secrets are not my secrets. It's all open. Ask me any question you want. I'll tell you how to make it in this industry, what it's going to take to get in this industry, because I can't do this forever. Common sense. There's going to be somebody behind me, the next Von Hot Rod, let's say, or whatever his name is, that's going to take my place. And I want to be able to train them and let them know that this is a good industry. I always say in the year 3030, there's going to be a kid striping a spaceship in a dirt parking lot. That's just how it's going to be.
So last question, what's next for Von Hot Rod? Where do you go from here? I mean, or do you even know? Or are you waiting for the inspiration? I mean, right now you're running around all over the world to these gigs and stuff, and but any thoughts about what's next?
I have no idea. This industry's been so good. I don't even know. I just know the phone's ringing. I'm very blessed, and I'm healthy to go. And I'm blessed that people want my artwork on their car or on their mixer or whatever the pair of shoes. I'm just very thankful. The industry has been very good to me. It's, as I say, it's paid my house payment and sent my kids off to college, and I'm very thankful for that. And it's like I can't give enough back. They've got me booked. I'm going to Texas Motor Speedway in the next couple of weeks for the NASCAR race, and I'm real excited, because that's opened up a whole other avenue. Von Hot Rod is booked at a NASCAR event. I think that's pretty cool.
It is really cool
that they're seeing a need for this, and I think that's pretty awesome.
Well, thanks for picking up our phone call.
No problem.
I guess in this case it was probably a contact on a website,
social media.
It's social media. It's the new world order.
That's right.
But we can't thank you enough for joining us on the SoCal Car Scene podcast. It's been a great ride for myself and our listeners, and I just can't thank you enough and good timing, right? That you're actually available.
I'm available. Yeah, caught me.
Wow, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
I'll turn it over to you, Jay.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Von Hot Rod. We've had a great time here on the show. Anything else you'd like to add? Anything we may have missed? And how can we follow you on social?
Yeah, just everything is at Von Hot Rod. And if you need to go to the website, remember it's vonhotrodshop.com. Check it out. See if I can help you in any way. Message me anything you want. Like I said, I'll answer all your questions as best I can. And I'll see you on the road somewhere.
Wait, I forgot to ask one question.
What's that?
Von Hot Rod has a signature finger pointing thing. Now, how did that come about? I'm going to try to do it, but I can't. So how did that come about?
That's the craziest thing.
People want to know.
My mind's always working different. My wife says, you think so different than anybody else. And people started taking pictures of me. Can I take a picture with you? And I was like, yeah. And so one time I pointed at the person, and in my head I said, look who I'm with. And so I'm pointing at them, and now everybody asks, when we take a picture, people say, did he point at me? Did he point at me? And I'm like, yeah. They call it, it's hashtag the Von Point. If you look on social media.
Oh, it's the Von Point?
Yeah, you can hashtag the Von Point. It's really funny. That's how it came about. So
it's signature, man.
That's an embarrassing
How do you find it?
Von Point. It should be like a meme, right?
I know.
Yeah. Or like, was that pointing Jesus meme? It should be like the same thing.
Is it a verb? Did you Von Point me?
Yeah, I just took a picture with, who was it? Steve Mank and Barry Maguire, and everybody's pointing different. Mank is pointing at my ear, Barry's pointing straight. It's hilarious. Somebody commented, there's a lot of finger pointing going on there. Sorry about that, world.
Look out for that Von Point out there, and be sure to go visit him, vonhotrodshop.com. Also, you can check him out on social media at Von Hot Rod. You can also check us out on social media at SoCal Classic or at SoCal Car Storage for Facebook. We will be creating this new social media for this new title of our podcast, The SoCal Car Scene, and you could follow us at The SoCal Car Scene, both on Facebook and on Instagram. And if you like this podcast, you could actually go and see more episodes either at our website at socalcarstorage.com/media, or if you're on Apple Podcasts, just go and search The SoCal Car Scene and make sure you hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss an episode that we come out every week. All right, well, once again, we had Vaughn Hot Rod on the show, and this show was also hosted by Dean Marash, technical director by Jason Marash, and thank you so much for stopping by, and happy driving.